Nearly 25% of Gen X believes it's nearly impossible to pay their debt off, says a recent survey. Now, debt's an interesting thing, and we talk about that here on the channel all the time. We know that it's bad. I personally consider all debt to be bad, yet most of us are consumed by it, and it's safe to say that a change in mindset would drastically alter our relationship with debt. And going from using it to buy simply just the crap that we don't need to only using it for things like income producing assets is really the best change that I can recommend, but I know that that's really difficult to make a leap to for most people, especially considering that nearly 25% of Gen Xers believe that it's going to be nearly impossible to pay their debts off. That's true. You heard me say it correctly. We've got a big problem here and we need to solve it. Hey guys, welcome back to the VIP Financial Education channel. Matthew Pillmore here, your cash flow coach. Today we're going to be talking about that four-letter word that many of us face. You guessed it, folks. I'm talking about DEBT. Now, new data from a recent online survey reveals that a new startling statistic exists that almost a full quarter of Americans that are ages between 36 and 51, also known as Gen X, which I am included within, consider their debt loads nearly impossible to pay off. In today's video, we're going to find out why that's the case by analyzing this current trend and identifying some of its causes. For those that are not part of the generation in question, there are still some important financial lessons to be learned here, so don't miss out on today's episode. Now, if you were to draw a graph representing the average expenses of Americans by age, what you'll notice is a sharp increase at around the age of mid-30s on up into the 40s, and this makes sense because costly variables like raising children or home ownership and simply taking care of aging parents often will come into the picture at around this time of life. And it's a very expensive age overall, precisely where Generation X is currently. And how they're managing it says a lot about what not to do when it comes to how you use your credit cards and your credit in general to your advantage. So let's dig a bit more into this. A division of SunTrust Bank recently conducted an online poll over 2,000 different respondents that fell into the Generation X age category. And among them, 80% reported carrying debt, with the average amount of that debt being a whopping $30,000. And that excludes debt from mortgages. So that's a far cry, obviously, from where Generation Z currently sits, those that are 22 years old or younger, which only average right now about $7,000 in debt. And the interesting thing to note about this Generation X predicament here is that it's not all bad. In fact, the 36 to 51-year-old age range also happens to contain some of the years of the highest earnings for many Americans as careers mature and value in job markets increase. But are Gen Xers using their increased earnings to pay down their debts? Unfortunately, no. They're not. Instead, they're actually turning to one of the most toxic financial traps ever invented, the deadly credit card. Now, let's be clear. Credit is something to be strategic about. In fact, we've cut many videos showcasing how you can create wealth by using your credit and even credit cards the right way. In fact, I'm only days away from collecting somewhere between $750 and $1,000 in rewards points from my credit card, which I do multiple times a year. There are hundreds of books actually that have been written about how to best build and maintain a healthy credit score. But when credit is used as a means to take care of what we consider to be those routine living expenses, bad things happen. You see, you don't spend money you don't have on things that don't have appreciating value or residual income producing assets. What you're effectively doing is stealing money from your future self. So not only are the highest earners spending more and more dollars, lifting their spending levels right along with their income levels, many are also tapping credit cards just to keep afloat. In fact, this was once called Parkinson's Law, where expenses rise to meet income. And it's not very sustainable, obviously, especially when you consider a little something called retirement planning. It's hard to be maxing out your 401k when you have $30,000 or more in credit card debt that clearly takes priority. What then should those in Generation X be doing to resolve this situation? The question becomes, is there even hope for them after all? This is my generation, okay? So we care deeply about progress here. Absolutely, there are things that can be done, and we address them frequently here on the VIP Ed channel. With knowledge, there's hope for us all, of course. We always say education plus cash flow equals power. And learning how to use debt to actually increase overall net worth, increase overall cash flow is very different from going into debt in order to fund a modern day lifestyle. These two different uses of debt result in vastly different long-term consequences. On one hand, effective use of debt weapons can make an investor rich in a small handful of years, whereas on the other hand, no one's going to get rich by running up massive credit card balances at 24% APRs just to keep up with the Joneses or the neighbors. So this is what I would say to Gen Xers that are experiencing difficult challenges. Number one, eliminate the credit card debt. You've got to attack it with persistence, and once it's defeated, you're going to have to start acquiring those income-producing assets. Sometimes those two things are going to happen simultaneously, and one of the things that we teach in detail in our longer form videos is looking at a specific order with which we prioritize these various non-mortgage related debts. Most frequently, we start with something called the target rate. Now, the target rate is different than the snowball method taught by Dave Ramsey, which is simply paying off the smallest balance and working your way up to the largest balance, which produces some level of instant gratification, which helps keep people motivated. Or the avalanche approach, where we take the highest interest costs or highest interest rates and attack them all the way down to the lowest interest rates, which I think, again, arguably prevents substantial amounts of interest costs relative to the snowball method. And then our approach, obviously, attacking the highest target rate, which is the highest minimum payment in relation to the current outstanding balance owed. Now, that ratio will actually help influence your net cash flow most by the end of each month. Here's the bottom line. It really doesn't matter which of those or other strategies you're applying as long as you are consistent. And then you can just keep building upon this in the future. So don't yield to the temptation of using credit cards just because it's convenient, folks. Using credit cards for absolutely everything you've already budgeted for is critical to getting those rewards back. Travel rewards or cash back, like I'm choosing to do for myself. Credit cards should really only be used as a tool to make you look good to creditors, build your credit scores, and obviously those rewards. That's it. Carrying balances on them should be a financial no-no, and really financial no-no number one. So what are the best ways to tackle your debt? Well, there are actually many different approaches, as we've talked about. One great option is the snowball. Another great option is the avalanche. And finally, focusing on the target rates are fine. But to me, I'm becoming less and less particular about how somebody attacks and eliminates their balances as long as they are consistent about it. So oftentimes, simply finding the most simple, easy to stick with process is going to be the one that is going to be best for you. And furthermore, aside from just simply attacking and eliminating the liabilities through debt acceleration, we're going to talk about how we can maximize the growth of your assets and your income streams, because there is one debt weapon that is far better than any other, and it is a high income. So we're going to talk all about that. Now, if you're part of Generation X and you're watching this video, what's your take on all this? Are you feeling the credit crunch like so many of your peers are, like I did at one point? Go ahead and comment below. Tell me your thoughts. Pause the video, hit subscribe, and turn on those post notifications in order to be alerted every time a new video drops. Until we see you again on the next video, guys, make it a great day today and take care.